Greetings, everybody. This is Serpentine451, and welcome to another episode of Weeb Warriors this week. And joining me, like always, is my good friend Jordan. How you doing tonight, Jordan?
Doing pretty good, Tony.
Alright. So, it is a new anime season, and we have selected our shows that we'll be reviewing this week. Some shows that was brought to our collective attention. I will be catching myself up on at least one show that you watched, and you just have to play catch up with a couple of shows that I watched, which is the kind of basic turn of events, and we won't get into the major details of why those things exist. Well, the best way I can explain it is life got in the way. That's basically it. Or in my case, nothing but sheer boredom. So, what show do you want to start with on our review cycle this season, Jordan?
Right, so I think the show that makes the most sense is for you to go ahead and give your thoughts on After Lost, since...
Okay. So, essentially, from what I can gather, this is an anime adaptation of a mobile game, if my research into it is correct. So, basically, the whole plot of this show is that there was an event that caused an incident known as the Lost, where this big crater just hit Japan, I think it was Tokyo, which caused a lot of people to just disappear from existence. And the story takes place 3 years after this big event, where we find a blue-haired girl named Yuki being she is someone who possesses a being known as a tamashi, and tamashi is the Japanese word for soul. So tamashi kind of works as kind of like this supernatural ability where one can either have supernatural skills or create constructs that allows them to do superhuman things. In which case, well, on Jordan's end here on Discord, it appears that my voice or my mic is cutting in and out here. So, just give me one quick second to actually rectify this issue. Very true. And... oh, god damn it. Okay. Let's... How does one... okay. Let me just exit here for a quick moment. Is this better, Jordan? Can I be heard? Hello? Hello? Okay. Alrighty then. Weird. So, basically, what I'm trying to say here... Yuki is picked up by an individual named Takuya, who is then... saves her from an organization that wants to, if memory best serves me, sort of experiment on her. And essentially the first episode is this big old chase scene through the streets of, I think it's Tokyo. And where we're introduced to the whole concept of Tamashis through a pair of scientist characters that examine Yuki's brain patterns, which we find out it gives her this potential to actually use automacy, which is represented by a person or a bodyguard in her service named Akira. And what Akira's whole gimmick is that he can summon guns, from regular pistols to machine guns. And he can summon them like, well, Gilgamesh's Gates of Babylon, but with guns. And it's kind of cool when you really think about it. And we're introduced to a few characters, a fat otaku character named Geek, and we are introduced more in episode 2 to 2 characters. One is a female agent, well, these 2 agent characters, the female one whose name escapes me, but she has a thing for our boy Takuya, and we have the male agent who looked up to Takuya in the past, but due to some circumstances, doesn't anymore. And we're also introduced to another Tamashi user, where he can manipulate his knife. His knife is the focal point to his ability to basically teleport himself and create constructs that are based around his knives. Also, this organization wants to take Yuki and do some nefarious things with her because of her supernatural powers. Terrifying, yes. So I am very interested to see what the series can kind of provide, because what the series tends to do, and the whole goal that Takuya is given, since he's a courier for hire, is to take Yuki to the area that the Lost incident occurred at. Because it was a message to her father, a message from her father that led to this whole sequence of events that are happening currently. And that's basically it. It's an interesting show with interesting cliffhangers for endings in terms of where you might think the next episode's going to take place. So yeah, I'm going to continue watching it, and I hope you, Jordan, will actually catch yourself up with the series proper.
Right, I intend on watching it. I am queued up, I have an episode queued up to watch tonight, hopefully, but, didn't have enough time between getting off at 6:30 and now.
Life happens in certain ways, doesn't it?
That it does.
So, what's the next show that we're going to be talking about, Jordan?
Right, I mean, we might as well go ahead and continue the trend and have you talk about Logo Stray Dogs.
Right, so the starting of the season 3, since both of us haven't finished catching up for this current season's whole sequence of events, but with what I've initially learned, personally, I decided to watch this first episode of Season 3. And essentially, it's a story about Dazai's time in the Port Mafia, and introduced to Chinya, and his whole ability to manipulate gravity. And that's basically it. It's basically Dazai and the older gentleman character that his name escapes me, but you know who I'm talking about, right? The older character in the Port Mafia.
Their name escapes me just as well as it escapes you, right?
I know him because he's the gentleman with the monocle, and he's one of the more older. He's the old man of the group. But anyway, the whole mission's that they're looking for the the previous boss of the Port Mafia. And so Mori sends, the whole plot because Because, to be honest, while I was watching this first episode of Season 3, I was coming in and out of consciousness because I was really tired. And I'm only remembering the events vaguely, so I'm keeping this review vague as such because of that. So the whole basic plot is Dazai meeting Chuya, and the two of them teaming up due to Mori's instructions, because the previous boss is appearing everywhere, and Mori wants more information, and for them to take this guy out. And that's basically this first episode. And the most amusing thing is the title of the episode, reflecting that they're both Dazai and Chuya are 15 years old. It just amused me greatly. So yeah, that's basically...
You are amused by the oddest things, Tony.
It's part of my characterization, and due to my lack of understanding in some circumstances, a lot of things amuse me. Like seeing people fall from a chair makes me laugh uncontrollably.
I can't with you.
Most people can't, honestly. So yeah, on to the shows that, well, to continue this trend, let's actually have you talk about the show that I need to catch up on.
Which is?
What was that title again? Something related to teacher. It's like...
Related to teacher?
No, it's...
Are you talking about Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher?
Yes, that's right. I just couldn't remember the title off the top of my head.
Right, well, I've only seen episode 1 of 2, but we can go ahead and speak about it briefly. Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher is actually a short for the series, only about 12 minute episodes, and it follows a student, Ichiro, who ends up in these compromising and very thin veiled sexual situations with his teacher, Kama. And the first episode opens up with him going to the bathroom, and she is in the stall. Now, to his defense, she is in the mid-stall with the door unlocked, but that is because the stall won't lock. But then when he tries to leave, it has locked itself and trapped him inside. And then they have a weird, vaguely sexual moment about her holding in her pee, and then inadvertently pulling her. Yeah, it's a mess, but it's hilarious. In the end, he pisses himself. That's the end of that first.
Well,
the second half of the short, he decides that he can't forget about, he can't forget about the scene that he can't forget about what he saw with the teacher, and it's getting to distract him. He decides that he's going to skip out on class by going to the nurses, and when he gets there, of course, the teacher is there, sick, in her panties, with a black undershirt on. She has a fever, asks him to get cold medicine. He finds some, but of course, lo and behold, they are only suppositories. So clearly, as the rational adultness, she turns over and tells him to, put a suppository in it. But, don't look too much. So he blindfolds himself, which makes the situation 110% worse in any possible way. Then another teacher comes in to check on her, so she pulls him into the bed with her, and in a moment of kindness, thanks him for helping her out with everything. Of course, he inevitably contracts her cold from this, and she discovers that when she comes back to check
Well, looking at the source material, it's not just going to be Ichiro's story with a compromising teacher. Several students at this school will also be facing their own interesting issues with an overly sexualized situations with their respective teachers.
Right, which I gather from the opening, which is weird because I typically don't watch openings, but nonetheless,
Well,
it's definitely going to be an interesting series.
that's for sure. And I can't wait to actually watch it myself, knowing of its source material and how perverse it can be. So, out of the shows we've actually watched, which one do you want to start with, Jordan?
Right, well, now that we're on things that we both have seen, let's go ahead and check out the list. The list as it stands is Fairy Gone. Fairy Gone. Now, that is a series. Thus far, what we know about the world in which Fairy Gone is set is that there was a great war between vaguely European nations in which they employed fairy soldiers or human beings who had the quote-unquote fairy organ of various fairy creatures implanted inside of their bodies. And what this has allowed them to do is not only adopt superhuman traits, but also summon these fairies to fight on their behalf. And the first episode deals with a
It was an auction, wasn't it?
yeah, it's a mafia auction in which they're auctioning off a bunch of fairy-related items, namely, what do they call it? A page of the Black Fairy book, which seems to have some sort of esoteric and occult knowledge pertaining to fairies that is of high value to collectors. Nonetheless, one of the security guards just infiltrated this. One of the security guards that the mafia is using to have this auction is Mirella. Is that her name?
Yeah, I think it's... Yeah, Marla and Free are our focus characters, but Marla would be our protagonist. She would be the protagonist of the story.
So yes, Marla and Free are security guards for the mafia that are responsible for the auction. The auction is attacked by a mysterious fairy soldier that turns out to be a friend. They have a confrontation, and Marla awakens or obtains a fairy of her very own, a rather frightening wicker witch doll, effectively, that likes to burn fairies with her touch.
I mean, I really like the design of Marla's fairy. It's very interesting, and that's one of the things I can really say about this show is that the designs for each of these fairies are either grotesque or somewhat interestingly beautiful.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I like all the fairies are. Although I would like a little more explanation as to, I suppose, I guess for me, I'm just interested in the world as a general statement. I want to understand why the hell they thought this was a good idea.
Well, I find the world itself to be very interesting too, because apparently the trades of fairies can be a very black market sort of situation. And with the advent of fairy soldiers, they can also have these automaton-looking beings that are powered by essentially fairy magic. And we're also introduced to someone that Marla knew in the past, named, I think it's Veronica, but she goes by Val. Val or Var. And she's this blonde assassin that basically crashed the auction in order to steal some of the fairy items. That is from my memory, anyway.
No, you are correct.
And it is through this botched robbery that's how Marla got her fairy in the first place.
Yes.
And we also learn of the organization that Free works for called Dorothea.
I'm glad you knew how to pronounce it.
Yeah, there's a reason for it that I know that pronunciation. It's because one of the new characters in Fire Emblem Three Houses shares that same name.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah, when it comes to certain pronunciations, I just know because I've heard it before, or kind of seen that similar spelling, like, oh, that works. But anyway, that's essentially episode 1 of Fairy Gone. Val gets away, and Marla joins Dorothea.
Yep, not by choice, but because they're all beginning to join Dorothea and assist them in tracking down illegal fairy users or go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, technically she was motivated by finding her friend.
Right. And then episode 2, we get a little bit more into how a fairy soldier is made.
Right. I mean, effectively, it's what we were. I mean, I guess it's the first time we were made aware of fairy sense, because Marla definitely didn't undergo any surgical operation that we're made aware of.
Mm-hmm. But in in the country that Free is from, that we learn of how he initially became a fairy soldier.
Right, and his fairy is named Red Hood, a wolf-like fairy, which has grown drastically compared to that was inside of that tube.
Yes, you noticed that too.
And I explain what the hell's going on with that. Like, did it get stronger? Did it grow up? I don't understand.
I don't either, but I would like to find out what the hell is with that thing. Honestly. Yeah, but that thing looks like a fucking beastly monster.
That it does, Tony. That it does.
I mean, in its fights with other fairies, it rips shit apart. I mean, it has no qualms in actually just ripping dudes' heads off. Although in this episode we're introduced to two other members of Dorothea, that being Serge and... God. What was the girl with the glasses' name? What was her name again?
Ooh, I have no idea.
The girl with glasses, she basically had a fairy that did reconnaissance, and Serge was the blonde-haired dude that was the sniper of the group, that basically fired off an insectoid that summoned his fairy, which is insectoid, and it shot its stinger at, well, our illegal and mafia, our mafia-connected character, Wolfrin, yeah. In which his fairy looked menacing as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it mostly looked like a big-ass scorpion of some sort that was coiled around his body.
Yeah, that was Serge's. But Wolfren's was the Grim Reaper looking.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The four-armed Grim Reaper with the scythe.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pure nightmare fuel.
It was cool. I wouldn't call it nightmare fuel, though.
Well, to those who are, like, not me or you, but it would be nightmare fuel for, like, anybody else. That's relatively normal.
Perhaps.
But in the
yes.
But in the end, Wolfring gets away after some really impressive fight choreography between him and Free. But before he leaves the group, it had to stop at least 3 mechanized fairy soldiers, which apparently were tough to kill for these 4 individuals. I mean, admittedly, 1 couldn't really fight, whereas 3 can actually, like, shoot them or stab them.
True.
And, okay, so...
I mean, the artificial fairies were intended to be hardier than human beings, so I suppose it makes sense that they were difficult to take down with conventional means.
True. And I kind of figured that as much if they were primarily used as the foot soldiers in this Great War.
Right. I mean, they definitely weren't invested heavily in, right? They have very primitive weaponry, an oversized spade-shaped blade and a shield, and it's just like, go do the things.
Oh, no. And then on one of its arms has like a cannon at the end.
I didn't catch that.
Oh, I looked at the design for these 3 things, and I'm like, okay, so not only can it stab your face, but it can make a hole in your body.
Right.
But
I mean, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm in agreement.
But essentially, Wolfren gets away, and they did stop the trafficking of these artificial fairies, but essentially the target that Free initially wanted to go after, Wolfren, just got away, like I said before. So...
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think that it was immediately apparent that Wolfren was the one that was going to be coordinating the deal, but when it was revealed that he was responsible, he wanted to capture him.
Right.
Big loss is that they don't have any leads now, because Wolfren killed everyone that he was working with.
Very true. And we can tell from his character that he's a guy that does not want to leave loose ends behind.
No, he doesn't believe in loose ends.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And I'm going to keep up with this show because I'm very fascinated to see where it's going to go.
Yes, I'm interested to see where it ends up.
I can see a lot of this show's potential, like, with world building and how some things mechanistically work. I'm very curious to see what they do.
Also, it'd just be cool just to see how many more fairies, the different types of fairies they're going to bust out on people.
Oh, very true. So, I'm looking forward to a new episode every week. So, let's move on to our next show, Jordan.
Right, so the next show on the list is We Never Learn. Right, so We Never Learn episode 1, Genius and X are 2 sides of the same coin.
Since I know of the source material, I guess I should go over the basic plot of this this particular anime. So, Noriyuki Yuga, and kind of average student who due to his backstory just studies relentlessly because, well, his family is poor. And with the death of his father, and the inspiring words of said dead father, he just relentlessly studies and wants to get a VIP recommendation to a really good university that's associated with his school. However, the
Because
principal...
he's not going otherwise, because he's dirt poor.
That much is true. And so his whole and he gets this golden opportunity to actually get the recommendation from the principal if he tutors the two geniuses in selected fields, and if he succeeds, he gets a recommendation. We have the Thumbelina supercomputer, that's what her moniker is, Ritsu Ogata, and the Snow White of literature, I believe. Fumino.
Ooh, you got me on that one. I don't remember.
Fumino Furoshi. And these two characters basically excel at, in school terms, mathematics and English or language arts. Because Fumino is really skilled with a pen when it comes to actually writing anything. When we're first introduced to her, she brings a teacher to tears with the words that she wrote. And another teacher, when we're introduced to Risu, she writes this big, long calculation to basically solve a question. And we just see that mathematics is easy for Risu. But the interesting thing, and the reason why Yuga is conscripted into tutoring these two, is that both of them want to go into different fields. And these fields are something that they're weak at. And so Fumino wants to go to school to focus primarily on mathematics, so she can go to follow her dream, which isn't explained in the anime a whole lot, but it's vaguely mentioned, is that she wants to get into astrology so she can find her star.
What do you mean it wasn't discussed? They had a whole scene about it.
Yeah, it wasn't explored a whole lot, like the manga kind of explored in its introduction to her goal. It's essentially, if they actually adapt this in the anime, I would be really excited to see this, because Fumino's mother and her father were really skilled astrologists, so they know, they researched the placement of stars, and the star that Fumino looks at, when she looks at the night sky, she's looking for her mother's star. And that's the whole reason why she wants to go into a field that included mathematics. Now, in Rizu's case, she wants to go and excel in psychology because she wants to play games better. But due to her, let's say, lacking in understanding how other people feel, she can't really beat people at games. And so, Nariyuki has to figure out the best way to tutor each of these girls into these fields that they suck at. And that's basically the first episode. We're introduced to these three characters. And in episode 2, we're introduced to another new student for Nariyuki to tutor. And that character is... what's her name again? Going to the manga. Luckily, I can actually access these things on my phone, because information can come fast to me. Although my memory can act like a goddamn limp noodle. It's rather disappointing. I don't know. Uh, oh yeah, Urika Takimoto. This girl excels at sports, specifically swimming, but when it comes to everything else, she's dumber than a sack of bricks. And in order for her to get the scholarship in sports that she is excelling in and actually will receive, but she's not going to get that recommendation because they require it to be for all-rounded students, which she most certainly is not. And she is the one character that from the jump has unrequited feelings for Noriyuki. And this was a crush that she developed since she and Noriyuki were in middle school. And the funny thing about this series is that it's mostly just telling of Noriyuki and these girls' misadventures while he's trying to tutor them and to make their dreams and aspirations actually come true, while working along his own goal and dream so he can live up to his own expectations. And what are your inputs and thoughts on this show, Jordan?
Right, so I definitely think it's a pretty solid show, decent comic. I'm looking forward to seeing how these things pan out. I can definitely see a very sort of like romantic subplot arc playing out where, steadily the other two female protagonists, or the other two protagonists, Felix and Haruki, and then inevitably that comes to a head of some sort. There's going to be this awkward tension between all three of them, and then inevitably resolve, air quotes, but nothing will really happen. Or they'll do the cop out and be like, we all want to be friends more than we love Naruto. Kind of like a fuck you to Naruto in a way, but you take what you can get, you don't throw a fit.
Actually, about that, Jordan, there are.
Right, maybe we shouldn't talk about it.
I will point out that in the source material, a lot of the characters kind of realized they had feelings for Noriyuki, but it's the more emotionally connected Fumino kind of realizes these things, and it's rather funny that she doesn't initially want anything to do with that life, so she tries to stay out of it initially.
Right, I mean, thanks for spoiling that for me, Tommy.
But that all depends if the anime actually will adapt that. And I have a tendency of spoiling things for people, so I apologize, Jordan.
Run along, fucking shitbag.
I spoil Game of Thrones when it comes to my family, so my stepmother has to actively say, "Shut your damn mouth."
Don't spoilers on this, we'll get kicked off the internet.
Yep. So everyone likes to tell me to shut my damn mouth if I saw something they haven't seen yet.
Right, definitely gonna put you on. Next.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so we are introduced to King in this episode, and mostly focused on King's whole, a little bit of King's backstory, and the fact that Saitama and Janos had to fight a giant mechanized warrior that was after King because of his moniker being the strongest man. Which, in actuality, it's a lie, and he's an otaku that is just skating off this reputation that he's created for himself.
Right. And so essentially, King has a intimidating face, having suffered an injury, which they elaborate further on later in the episode, and his ability, which they call the King Ninja, which is actually just this very loud.
Yeah, it is very hysterical. And in this episode, and when the machine challenges King, but King's like, I need to make sure I do a few things first. So he goes to the
He
bathroom.
literally says, I have to take a piss. I can only fight at 50% of my strength if I hold it.
Yep. And
they're just like, oh, interesting.
and then the truth is like, holy shit, what the fuck? Do I really have to fight this thing? I'm gonna vomit uncontrollably. I can't handle this pressure. Or, oh yes, it was actually, I'm too fucking scared to actually do this. What the fuck? Which had me laughing uncontrollably. And I'm sure that was the same thing for you, Jordan.
Well, so I was already aware that this was having read up on him in between the series, so I was just prepared for this. The only thing that I found funny were just the expressions that King was making. And they were so hilarious.
Indeed, they were the most hilarious, and his interactions with Saitama were actually really good too. Like Saitama just coming in unannounced in King's apartment because the whole thing with King, he left just so he could buy a game that he wanted to play. And the end result was Saitama and King just playing video games. It was hysterical.
Right.
And we also learn the whole reason why King is the strongest man is because he always gets rescued by Saitama in some way, shape, or form. And Saitama is like, yeah, I'm not upset that you use my victories as a way to boost up your popularity, but you gotta make sure you train yourself better so you can actually live up to your name. And that just made me think, okay, so King here is very terrified I mean, you get what I'm trying to say, right, Jordan?
Yes, I hear you, Tony.
Because King here is worried that Saitama's going to kick his ass because he's taking all of his glory. But Saitama's like, nah, I'm okay. You can do whatever you want, dude. Well, but at the end of the day, it was a really good episode, and for another studio to basically take up the mantle of animating this really good series, they did a really impressive job. I mean, I was a bit hesitant that Madhouse wasn't animating the series, but it's like...
Right, so I definitely noticed that there was a difference in the style. So I don't want to say quality, because it's not animated poorly, but it's definitely different.
Right, yes. And it's not... And with Madhouse being, like, the pinnacle of, its One Punch Man adaptation was kind of the standard of, how to animate this show. The studio that picked up this second season actually lived up to those expectations in a lot of ways. Even though the style was relatively different than what Madhouse did. But, all in all, I know I'm going to be continuing to watch this second season of One Punch Man.
That's why.
And that's essentially it. And the Otaku Soapbox discussion for this week is essentially what our thoughts are, as of right now, what this anime season is going to turn out to be in terms of the shows that we're watching. I think we're going to enjoy all the shows that we'll be reviewing to some capacity, and it's just going to be a very solid season, at least in my eyes.
I believe so. I think at first it didn't appear that the season was going to be all too good, but then there are definitely things that are going to make it worthwhile in the end.
Very true. And we'll leave it at that. So, now that the format has essentially changed in Weeb Warriors in more of a podcast style, I want to propose what shows that everyone out there seeing this video is watching, and just leave your thoughts on all those shows down in the comment section below. And that will be it. So I'll catch you guys next time for another 3 episode of Weeb Warriors, and when I actually post this, you'll be getting 2 new episodes of Manga Maniacs because, well, my notoriously lazy ass decided to not edit or actually put together my Spice and Wolf review I did for Manga Maniacs, as per tradition. So, see ya guys. Oh, what the fuck?